Okay, so we have a super interesting video today. This is along political lines, but I like to talk about different issues in the news as well. County Gains News Media Network. County Gains Media Network, I like to call my channel. This is called The True Origins of Lyme Disease, and it's by Tucker Carlson on his YouTube channel. In the late 1960s, government bioweapons labs started injecting ticks with exotic diseases. So, the government of the USA, I've said this to everybody, nobody believes me, but this is actually true, guys. They injected ticks and these different animals in the US. There's a Jesse Ventura conspiracy theory episode about it, with exotic diseases. Soon people nearby began to get these diseases. Now there's a Lyme disease epidemic, and the government still hasn't admitted anything, guys. They still haven't taken responsibility for it. Now, we don't really have Lyme disease in Ireland. In Europe, we have Lyme disease a lot, though. It's quite prevalent. It was used to basically curtail and cull, basically kill deers. But they realized once these ticks would get onto humans, is bad, guys. It's serious diseases. A lot of my favorite people, Justin Bieber got it, Ren, a lot of these, my favorite artists have had Lyme disease as well. Very serious stuff. So, like, comment, subscribe. Let's get it. Stay free, man. Let's go.
You live in certain parts of this country, rural areas particularly, people who have or who have had Lyme disease. And for some of them, maybe most, it's not a huge deal. You go in and you get a big dose of antibiotics, you have some symptoms, and then it seems to go away. But for some percentage, and you may know these people too, it's totally life-destroying.
Yeah.
It's years in bed. It's agony. It's really the end of your productive life. So what is that exactly? What is Lyme disease? Well, there's still an active debate about that very basic question. Some have dismissed it as a psychological symptom, actually. But even people who acknowledge that it's a physical syndrome aren't always very clear, and they're certainly not in agreement with one another about what it is or where it came from.
Yeah, a lot of people I talk to about it disagree with me. They say you're a conspiracy. But guys, I'm telling you, man, Lyme disease is created by the government. Why the hell? A tick has nothing on it, guys. A tick is this size. How the hell? It's miniature. You can barely see them. I used to get ticks on my arm all the time in Ireland. We used to play airsoft, and I used to get ticks all the time in my groin. I used to get loads of ticks, but nothing ever, thankfully, that I know of, diseased,
So back in 2008, a woman called Chris Newby produced a documentary about Lyme. At that point, it was becoming a very serious global illness, and its origins were mysterious, unknown. People whispered about it, but no one could be certain. That documentary was called Under Our Skin. Here's part of it.
Some infectious disease doctors, they don't believe in Lyme, and they said that I was faking it and pretending so I could get out of school.
Lyme is the fastest growing infectious disease in the country. 200,000 new cases a year, maybe even more.
It is a political disease and an economic disease as much as it is a bacterial-borne infection.
I would never have thought that something like a bacteriological infection can become so politicized. The truth can be so brutally distorted.
I go into despair daily. I cry daily. I want to die daily.
Well, when I saw this doctor, he said, you've got a long road ahead of you. It's not going to be easy. So that scared me. The unknown is pretty scary.
It is a national health crisis that is completely and totally being ignored and squashed.
Crazy. But bro, listen, I've known about all this stuff since I was a kid. My mom used to tell me all this stuff. Everybody should know about this stuff, but nobody knows about it. It's crazy.
What is going on?
Well, you could write it off, and again, some have, as a figment of your imagination, but there are real neurological symptoms, and if you know anyone who's had it, you know that it's entirely real.
Yeah, it is.
So again, what is this? Well, Chris Newby has spent a lot of time thinking and researching on this topic, has been affected personally by Lyme, is the author of Bitten, The Secret History of Biological Weapons and Lyme Disease.
Bro, they have insects, the government CIA have, like cameras and stuff hooked up to insects and spiders and flies. They've been doing this since the 50s, guys. Everybody knows this.
And she joins us now. Chris Newby, thanks so much for coming on. So can you just give us
thanks for inviting me here.
Oh, absolutely. A quick and succinct overview of what Lyme is.
So Lyme disease is caused by a spirochetal bacteria, and you get it through a tick bite. And if you treat it immediately with doxycycline or amoxicillin, it will go away. The problem is it's very often
Audible brings customers.
Bro, nobody catches it in time though. Like it's really prevalent.
Misdiagnosed or diagnosed late, and that's where the controversy comes in for the disease. It can linger for months to years, and then it's really hard to get rid of. And to complicate it, a tick can transmit up to like 20 different disease-causing microbes, and so if you have like 2 or 3 or 4 of those in one tick bite,
Jeez.
it creates a confusing set of symptoms that doctors have trouble diagnosing.
So doctors can isolate, however, the organism that causes Lyme specifically. I mean, there's no mystery about where that comes from. Is that correct?
Well, there are antibody tests for Lyme disease. It's really, really hard to culture take blood and culture it in a petri dish.
Yes.
The problem is the tests are not very reliable. The Lyme disease antibody tests don't usually work in the first month. It takes a while for your body to develop antibodies to the level that they can be measured. And then later on, the tests aren't that great. It's no better than a coin flip because it just depends on what strain you have and what if you're really sick, you won't produce antibodies.
Interesting. So the problem with tick-borne diseases is there are a lot more ticks than there have been in our lifetimes anyway. Parts of the Northeast have seen an explosion in tick populations to the point where large mammals are being decimated, sucked dry of blood and dying because they have too many ticks on them. Jeez. So that's not anyone's imagination, that's measurable. So if you have a disease that's spread by ticks and there are a whole lot more ticks, you're going to get a whole lot more cases of the disease. Is this measurable?
Yes, and I would say just the cases of Lyme disease are going up, which is proving that ticks are biting people. The CDC estimates there are 500,000 cases a year. That's on average 1,300 people a day. So that's significant. Now, why they're spreading so quickly, I go into that in the book a little bit. I mean, there certainly is global with climate change, which means winters aren't as severe and a lot of the ticks don't die off. That's true in Maine. And then part of it is people are moving into the woods and are exposed more to the ticks.
Yes, all true. In Maine and other northern states.
Yeah,
but
Maine is like up near where we are, guys, or northeast in Ottawa. It's kind of like remote,
It does raise the question, like, how did this? I mean, if you're 75 years old, you did not grow up with Lyme disease.
Right.
If you're 15 years old, you're worried about Lyme disease. That's a pretty short period. Where do we think this came from?
Well, the thing I found in my research for my book is Lyme disease wasn't a noticeable problem till the mid 70s. And what my research said is that there are actually 3 really virulent tick-borne diseases that showed up right around Lyme, Connecticut, at the mouth of the Connecticut River, which is right across from Plum Island, which was the U.S.'s anti-animal crop headquarters.
Yeah, so they wanted to cull a lot of these crops. This is all done. I know this since I was 15 years old. Jesse Ventura had a nice show, and he talked about this, guys. Nobody knows about this.
Biological weapons program. So late 60s,
crazy.
The peak of the biological weapons program in the U.S., these 3 freaky diseases showed up. So that was Lyme arthritis caused by the spirochete.
Whoa.
There was a rickettsia, which is Rocky-Mountain spotted fever, and then there was a cattle parasite. It was the second time it was found in man in that area, called babesia, and that's actually I got Lyme and babesia, which can be fatal, and it's a serious disease.
Jeez.
So all 3. So you have a cluster, effectively, of these 3 previously rare diseases right across the water from the U.S. government's biological weapons testing facility. Is that
too many coincidences, guys?
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it's if you're like working for the CDC and on the lookout for natural versus unnatural disease outbreaks, having 3 new tick-borne diseases show up, extra deadly disease causing than in the past, it would raise, it would get their attention, and there would be investigations, which is what happened.
That sounds like a crazed conspiracy theory to me, just because you have previously rare diseases show up all at once across from a biological weapons facility doesn't mean. So the CDC investigated this. What did they find?
Well, a housewife in Lyme, Connecticut, Polly Murray, was the first one to start documenting, and she started pounding on the doors of local health departments and the CDC. Oh, yeah. And it really took her 7 years before the CDC responded, and a doctor named Alan Steer showed up and started, from Yale. He's a CDC EIS officer, and started investigating it. And he figured out it was tick-borne, but he couldn't figure out the causative agent. And at that point, the U.S.'s #1 tick researcher, Willy Bergdorfer, a Swiss-American tick guy who was in NIH's Rocky Mountain Laboratory, came out to investigate. And that's where he found, the public-facing story is he found the spirochete. It causes this bullseye rash. He said that's what's causing all the disease. And the panic should stop. Just take 2 weeks of doxycycline and the problem will go away. But it didn't. And that's where my book took off. I started looking at the backstory and wondering what really happened. And people associated with that disease weren't acting in the normal way. Normally, when you discover a dangerous new disease, you say, oh, this is horrible. Give us money, we'll research it. But instead, it just became more and more secretive.
Yes.
Like they refuse to talk about it. It's crazy, man. This is crazy.
So is it your belief that Willy Bergdorfer, who I think is gone now, but knew the truth about what happened? And what do you think is the truth?
Well, I worked on the Lyme disease documentary.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I would like to see more over on his channel, but it's crazy, guys. You know, that's pretty much the gist of it. You know what I mean? We all know that Lyme disease is a very serious thing. Get checked out, guys. Don't leave these ticks to go unnoticed. You know, I've been bitten by ticks lots of times. Thankfully, I've never got anything, to this day, Jesus. But we're going out to the forest tomorrow, actually, so I'm going to be super cautious. Tuck my pants into my thing and tuck my shirt in and be super cautious because I don't want to get any of that shit, guys. I love you all. I'll see you guys on the next one. Stay free. Peace.